can't remember, but I was like, I haven't seen you in a while. Here you are.
Well, there's some kind of energetic connection then.
Yeah. Yep. That was just so funny that I like that. I think of you when you appear.
Well, then think of me more often, please.
I will. Okay. Let's get going. So welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Today's class, we are working on Trikonasana, triangle pose. So one of, I guess you could say, is a foundational standing pose of yoga, right? It's one of those iconic poses that when you think of yoga, it's very easy to think of triangle pose because you see it done a lot. But I feel that when we practice it, is we're often going in this direction with triangle where we're looking for the shortest possible way to get into it, when triangle pose is really about full extension, right? So if you think about the way that you actually would draw a triangle, right, is that you imagine that those lines, as they come into connection with each other, create a point. But the line doesn't end, right? This is what we know about geometry, is lines don't end, as they extend infinitely, right? So even when you have a point that you are finding on that line, is it doesn't mean the rest of the line no longer exists. It just means that you have now focused on that portion of the line that is between 2 points. Geometry lesson if you haven't been in there for a while. So a triangle pose, what I've been enjoying this concept of is that triangle pose is made up of these intersecting lines, right? Because you are creating triangles with the body. And so this metaphor of the triangle that has, you know, multiple angles, is that which one is the important one, right? Triangle has 3 points, but which one is the important one? The answer is all of them. And we say that like a triangle, that the base is, it's incredibly stable, right? Because it has this connection to all 3 sides, right? So it's a very stable shape. But when we practice to not focus in just one direction and get completely, narrow in our vision in that one direction, but to remember that extension is happening in all directions. So you're not just going forward in triangle pose, you're also extending backwards. You're not just extending through the arms, but you're extending through the legs, and everything comes back to where are the points meeting, right? So there's this recognition in triangle that whatever much you extend, you're always extending from the same place, and that those points are always going to come back to the same place, right? There's one center. But that concept, right, that extension goes in all directions and all of them are important. So the less we are focused in only one place, the more we start to have that inclusive experience, that inclusive view, right? And that's really what we're said, is when we have that consistently, we call it yoga, right? So comfortable seat, if you're not there already, let your eyes close. Beautiful. And then let yourself just breathe a little bit deeper down into the base of your pelvis. We often say breathing into the belly, and that's lovely. Breathe into your belly as well. But I want you to focus on that area, that triangle, if you will, below your belly button. You're actually trying to direct the breath all the way down into that triangle of the pelvis below the belly button. You can notice this if you take one hand, place it to that part of your belly below the belly button. Take your other hand, bring it to your sacrum, lower spine. And then as you're breathing, see if you can feel the breath moving underneath both hands. It's going to be a little bit more subtle with the hand on the back, but see if you can still experience an expansion, an awareness of the breath in the front of the body as well as the back of the body. Because we say, right, that we want to have this all-inclusive view, or we want to have this all-inclusive experience, but we might not be naturally focusing that way. We have to actually train ourselves to look in the directions that we never look. We have to actually direct ourselves to pay attention to what we are so used to ignoring. And sometimes muscularly is that these are muscles in our body that have never really worked together. So it's something to play with. And if you don't feel much movement in the back, it's something to play with more. See if you can keep working with the breath in this lowest part of your spine. In the end of the next exhale, release the breath, release the hands, bring the hands together in front of the heart center, palm to palm. And we'll open officially, sound of Om, deep breath in. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. You can release your hands, please. Then bring your hands to your knees or your thighs and just start to cat-cow your spine. So a seated cat-cow. So hands anchored to the front of the knees. So you're really finding this feeling of moving the entirety of your spine. So the arms are your two edges, as you're moving your rib cage forward beyond the arms, and then you're moving the rib cage back behind the arms. So you're using that as a reference of how much can I bring my rib cage forward? How much can I draw it all the way back? Good. So again, this concept that extending is not just, am I lifting my collarbones up and down? It's not just the flexing of the spine, but it's that movement forward and back. Good. This triangle pose is where many of us get stuck, is at the outer hips. We don't realize it. It's the outer hips, but it's also this low part of the trunk that starts to inhibit our ability to get any further, to lengthen any further. Good. Couple more breaths in your cat-cow. Move a little faster if you'd like. Good. Nice. And then bring yourself back to stillness, please. And then you're taking your hands to your side ribs. So if you've never done rib isolations before, I changed my camera so you can see this, is that we're looking for the rib cage to be able to shift, right? My hips are not shifting, but my rib cage is able to move from side to side, right? So it's not my shoulders, it's my ribs. So that's what we're looking for. If having hands at the sides of your ribs helps with that, you can certainly do it. And then try and push that right rib cage into the right hand without moving your left butt cheek. And then come back to center, and then try and push it to the left, and then back to center and to the right. Good. So hands a little higher, mark up on your ribs. Good. So you're just moving the rib cage right and left, keeping your butt exactly center. So don't let it move with you. Good. And if it feels like it's hard to do because you've never done it before, again, isolation, you're isolating the movement of your trunk, which is important when you're doing triangle, to be able to find, how do I extend to the side? Good. So now really fun, and come back to center. Do that rib cage again, like you're cat-cowing forward, and then to the right, and then back, and then to the left, and then forward again, and then to the right, and to the back, and to the left, and forward. It's just like jazzercise, to the right, and back, to the left, forward. Good. Take it the other way. Go to the left, and back, and right, and forward. I know. Left, and back, right, forward. Remember, you're keeping your pelvis still. You're moving your ribs, but keeping your pelvis still. Good. Now make it one even circle, trying to hit all of those points. The chest comes forward, to the left, to the back, to the right, all the way forward again. So you're circling the ribs, but you're trying to find those all four directions in that circle. So don't wiggle your butt around, move your ribs. Good. And then take it the other way, please. Move your ribs the other direction. Keep your butt still. Good. You are moving your butt a little bit. That's okay. Again, you're just trying to find that isolation. It's not going to be necessarily perfect today. Good. And then let all of that go. Just take your arms up and shake them for a second. Yeah. Let your brain get out of whatever that mode was. Good. And then stretch your arms all the way out and wide. Turn your palms to face up, please. Bend your elbows. Take the tips of your fingers to the tops of your shoulders. Make circles. Yeah. Because not only is triangle pose very much about extension through the legs, it's also extension through the upper back, through the shoulders, through the arms. Good. And then move yourself the other direction. Reverse the circle. And again, trying to keep your rib cage here now as still as you can. So don't move the ribs around, just move the arms. I know. Good. And then come back to stillness, please. And just start to bring the elbows forward like they're going to touch, and then bring them wide, just in line with your shoulders. Bring them forward to touch, and then bring them wide, just to the edge of your shoulders. Bring them forward. And here's where already it's going to get a little tricky, because if I tell you, as you're bringing the elbows wide, to squeeze behind your heart, squeeze behind your shoulder blades, pause there for a second. See how my elbows have come back way further than the edge of my ribs? I'm actually overextending, right? So that's what we tend to do when we say squeeze behind the heart. So bring the elbows forward again, bring them just to the point where they're level with your ribs, and then forward and back. So it's going to feel like you're not going to your full capacity of maxing out your extension, right? That's good. You don't want to max out the range of motion through the arms. You want to find where is their actual neutral connection, arms into chest. And then that's where you extend from. So one more time, elbows forward, bring them just to that point, and then stretch the arms all the way back out. Nice. And then here, you can turn the palms back down, lean all the way out to the right as though you were coming into triangle. So lean, 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 lean. Good. So you did that rib movement. Drop that left butt cheek down to the floor. Good. And then lean a little more from your ribs. Yep. So try and draw that left rib cage in and push wider through the right. That's it. And then let that right hand touch down to the floor. Left arm over the ear, side stretch. Yeah. So there's a lot of secondary abdominal muscles that are involved, back muscles that are involved in being able to support the spine in triangle pose. And there are a lot of the muscles that we tend not to use unless we have to, right? So I say they're secondary. They're not the big muscles in the front, they're the muscles that are on the side. So if you're like, oh, this stuff is really hard to do, you're not alone. They're muscles that just haven't been used a lot in your life. Marks are awake now. Come all the way back up to center, arms out wide. Hallelujah, right? That's what it means to be enlightened. It means you're awake. But that's what it means to be Buddha. You're awake. So extend out to the left this time. So same thing, reach out as far as you can go. You should feel those muscles have to kick in to support you. So you want to reach far enough that you feel something kick on, and then press that right butt cheek down to the floor. You're still leaning, still reaching, but press the right butt cheek down. So again, that's your anchor, and also stretching in opposite direction, extension in both directions. Good. One more breath. Really press through that right shin and right sit bone, Kristen. Yeah. Good. Let that hand touch down to the floor. Right arm over the ear. Nice, reaching. And again, if this feels like it's particularly difficult in that area right at the base of your torso, feels like it's very, very restricted, very tight. Again, you're not alone, right? This is an area that's very tight for most people, especially if you do a lot of sitting. Outer hips, torso gets very tight. Good. And then come all the way back up. Nice job. Good. Bring the hands forward, roll onto hands and knees. Hooray. Hooray, hooray. And then go ahead, find your way back to downward facing dog, tuck the toes, lift the hips. Beautiful. Good. Bend your knees, please. Dropping the hips towards the heels. Cat cow your spine just a little bit. So again, in this position, you want to maintain this feeling of extension through the arms. So your butt has to stay back. Good. But you also want to, again, work the spine like you are drawing the heart forward between the upper arms and then backwards up between the shoulder blades. So you're moving the heart center forward and back. Good. I think I decided on triangle pose for this week because I've been meditating on the heart chakra. And if you know the image for it, the visualization that we're given for it is that it has interlocking triangles, two interlocking triangles, one that seems to be pointing up, the other that seems to be pointing down. And it occurred to me that, well, yeah, sure, the main point that we're told to focus on is pointing up or down, but how about the other 4 points, right? The energy of the heart center is that it extends in all directions. And this is triangle pose as well, as you extend in all directions. Bend your knees just a little bit more, you guys. Pause the upper spine, but bend your knees a lot. And bring your butt back, 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 back. Good. And then take your legs all the way to straight. Let your hips go nice and high. Awesome. And then step the right foot forward between the hands. Lunge. Good. Use blocks underneath the hands here if you need. Keep that left heel up off the floor. Just start to straighten your right leg. So again, if your hands can't comfortably touch the floor here, use blocks so that you can straighten your front leg. Keep your left heel lifted. So pull it up higher, right? So notice the difference. Pull that back heel up, up, up off of the floor. So you have this sensation of your thigh bones pulling up into the apex, the top of that leg triangle, pull up. And then go ahead and keep that feeling of lift on your hips. Start to bring that left heel back down to the floor. See what happens. Good. Do it one more time. Lift the heel up. Notice what angle on your pelvis you're able to achieve with that heel lifted. You can probably extend your lower back just a little bit more. So pull your tailbone back towards the back of your mat. Good. Now try to maintain that. Let that left heel move back towards the floor. Any amount, doesn't have to touch. Good. And then bend that right knee a lot, please. Bring it forward over the ankle. Inhale, both arms to the sky, high lunge. Nice. Good. And then reach your right hand to your left wrist. Sorry, I had to think about sides. And lean to your right, please. So leaning towards the front knee. There you go. Good. Push that left hip wide to the left as you lean to the right. So don't let that right side body collapse. Lift up taller. Yeah, nice, Harriet. Come all the way back up. Release the hands down to the floor. Beautiful. Step that left foot forward and wide just a little bit. So drop the heel into warrior one. So left foot steps slightly forward, drop it to 45 degrees. Bend that right knee again, come back up into warrior one. So shoulders and hips facing straight ahead. Good. Notice that I'm having you do a lot of forward facing poses first, where the pelvis is oriented straight ahead instead of going straight for that sideways position. We want the hips, we want the pelvis to be a little bit warm, more open before we start all that rotation, right? So arms overhead, cross your right wrist in front of your left. So just the wrists, and then turn your palms so that they touch each other. Yep. So you're pressing your palms together, bend the elbows wide. Good. And again, draw the arms back in space, widen your armpits, but be careful that you don't pinch, over squeeze behind your heart. So you want that feeling of the elbows pushing wide, the hands pressing together to be resistance, and then feel your chest lift up a little higher, lengthen through the crown of your head, and feel yourself drop down through your tail. Good. One more breath. Keep the focus on the upper body. Awesome. Release, stretch the arms straight up alongside the ears. Good. And then exhale, release, hands down to the floor. Lift that back heel. Step back, downward facing dog. Ay, ay, ay. Good. Slide forward to plank pose, upward push up. Good. Lower down slow, coming through knees first if you need. Widen your hands. So you're coming into a wide armed cobra. So on your belly, walk your hands wider, right and left. Lift those elbows up towards the ceiling. So you want them facing all the way up towards the ceiling. And then notice that the front of your arm bones, when you do that, is going to roll forward, right? So you want to keep your elbows up. And as you start to lift into Cobra, go ahead, lift head, neck, and chest. You're taking this arm bone up and wide, right? So this becomes this, right? A neutral open line between the upper arm into the chest. That's what you're looking for. And that angle is going to be different for every one of us. So you have to find yours. But try to keep those elbows rotating up as the arm bones rotate back and wide. Good. One more breath, you guys. You might have to actually lift the chest higher to find that rotation. Nice, Sue. And then slowly release, please. Good. Forehead to the floor. Take your hands back behind your head, elbows wide. Good. Lift the elbows up. So again, you have this feeling of I have to lift from those armpit muscles or from the back of my shoulders. Have to lift. Good. But you don't want to lift higher than the actual levelness of your upper back. Press into the front of the pelvis, feet stay on the floor, lift head, neck, and chest, pressing your head into your hands. Keep your gaze straight down at the floor. Good. And again, I want you to feel those muscles of the back doing a lot of the lifting. As the elbows widen, it's to connect deeper into that space behind the heart. Good. That's it. Nice, Alana. Beautiful. Press through the top of your head. Again, extend. And then slowly release. Nice job. Plant the hands. Press up to hands and knees. Come back, child's pose. Good. Walk yourself to the right, please, over the right thigh. Again, with the intention of you're stretching the side waist here. So really let yourself walk a far to the right, as far as you can possibly go. Good. And then walk yourself back to center and then go to the left. Again, as far as you can go. You want to get into that sticky place. Side waist meets the hip. You can thank Kristen. I'm secretly giving her an opportunity to finish setting up her mat in a new room. So just kidding. We were going here anyway. Come back to center, please. Good. And then walk yourself back up to hands and knees, downward facing dog. Good. Left foot steps forward between the hands, lunge all the way forward. And again, if you need blocks underneath the hands here, use them. Good. So don't change the length of your feet at all, or the length of your legs, but start to straighten your left thigh, straighten the left knee, pull that right heel up away from the floor. So again, I want this feeling of everything drawing up into that center top point, into the apex, right? All the way up to where the legs meet the pelvis. Good. And then maintain that squeezing up. Start to bring that right heel back down towards the floor. And again, you'll notice that the angle of your pelvis sort of changes, naturally changes. Lift the heel again, pull all the way up. See if you can flare your sit bones backwards. So you actually are extending your tailbone up and back in this position. Good. And then try and maintain that as you drop that right heel back towards the floor. Keep pulling the left thigh up and in. Good. Nice, you guys. One more time, pull the heel all the way up. Again, just working this feeling of pulling the energy up through the legs instead of just pushing down. And then draw that heel back and down again, keeping that feeling of lifting from the inner thighs. Good. And then bend your left knee a lot, bring it forward over the ankle. Inhale, both arms to the sky, high lunge. Good. And your left hand is going to hold your right wrist and you're leaning to the left. So again, leaning towards the front leg. Don't let your hips collapse inward. So push your left hip wide to the left as you're doing this. And then try and lift that left armpit up a little higher away from your left hip. Good. Nice. And then bring yourself all the way back up. Good job. Release the hands down to the floor, please. Step your right foot wider to the right. Drop the heel to 45 degrees. Again, that foot will probably have to step forward a little bit more. Warrior one. Bend the left knee again. Take the arms up. Good. Really work to bring your pelvis facing straight ahead. So if that means you need to step that back foot wider to the right, do that. Because I really want you to work the pelvic bones to be in alignment with each other. So that back hip has to spin forward, forward, forward. Good. And then left wrist crosses in front of right. Again, turning the palms towards each other. Press the hands against each other and bend the elbows wide. So again, I want you to feel that pressure, the resistance of pushing the hands and the elbows away from each other should go straight down that line into your upper back. Again, if you don't feel anything, let me know. But as you push and then draw your low rib cage in, you should get that feeling of now you can kind of lift taller through your side waist. Pull through the crown of your head. And now drop completely through your tail. Good. Right? Lengthening in both directions. Keep pressing those hands. Pull up, crown of the head. Awesome. And then slowly release. Stretch the arms straight up. Pull. And then exhale, hands down to the floor. Spin your back heel up. Step back, downward facing dog. Good. Slide forward to plank pose. Upward push up. Deep breath in. Good. Here too, bring your armpits forward a little bit more, collarbones forward a little bit more, and then press back out through your heels. Yeah. So I want you to feel like you're trying to pull your ribs and your pelvic bones towards each other, like you're folding in at the waist, and then extend out from the crown of your head and out through your heels. Yeah. Plank pose you could hold forever, right? I know. Drop your right knee down to the floor underneath your right hip. You're like, no, thank you. Drop the left heel to flat, please. Take the left arm up to the sky. So here's your first taste of, again, finding what triangle pose should really look like. So what you just did in plank pose, draw your low rib cage in and feel like you're trying to lift your pelvic bones up to meet your lower rib. So you're folding in at that same place at your waist. It's going to be so frustrating because it's going to take the arch out of your back. Good. Maintain that. Don't let that arch come back. Good. And now bring that left hand slightly forward so that it's really not forward over your ear, just slightly forward towards the front of your chest. So again, you're bringing it into that neutral alignment, not all the way parallel to the floor, just a tiny bit. Neutral alignment. There should be no pull at the front of your left arm bone. Yeah, memorize that position. Good. Now take the left arm all the way over the ear and press out through the baby toe of your left foot. So again, extend. Don't let your ribs pop forward. Don't let that go. Yeah. Now rotate your left rib cage open towards the sky a little more. That's it. That's triangle right there. And then slowly release both hands down to the floor. Spin your left heel up. Come back to plank pose. Don't give up. What? Plank pose. I know. Good. Same thing. Look towards your belly button here, you guys. Feel like you're squeezing your hands and your feet towards each other. Good. So once you get that squeeze, low ribs, top of pelvis, anchor in. Now look slightly forward. Bring your collarbones forward. Push through the crown of your head. Press out through your heels. But don't lose that connection of your ribs and your pelvis trying to connect. This is what supports your lower back, right? Your lower back should not feel any ache here. Good. Left knee down to the floor. In theory, anyway. There's reasons why it might for other reasons, but in theory, there should be no pressure on the back there. Drop that right heel to flat, take the right arm up to the sky, and notice that every single one of us that has the capacity overarches in this position. We all do it, so don't worry about it. If you have the ability to do it, you do it. So again, try and draw the low rib cage in, feel that lift of your pelvic bones, like you're folding in at that same place at your waist. Good. And then try to bring that right hand just forward enough that you feel no pull at all at the front of your right armpit, front of your right shoulder. No pull at all. It's going to feel very weird, like I can't possibly be all the way in the pose, but you are. This is a neutral alignment for your shoulders. Good. Now take that right rib cage open a little bit more without flinging the arm back. Nice. Draw your head slightly back in space, Emily. Good. Nice too, everybody. And then take that right arm all the way over the ear without changing any of that. Good. Press out through that baby toe edge of the right foot. Yeah, you want to feel like you are pulling the armpit and the hip away from each other, even as the ribs and the pelvis are trying to fold towards each other. Good. And then slowly release all the way back to hands and knees. Do a little cat and cow. I won't say plank, just cat and cow. Good. Nice, you guys. And then slowly come back to stillness. Please tuck your toes, lift your hips, come back to down dog just for a breath or two. Take your right leg up and back behind you, down dog split. Bend the knee, kick your heel in towards your butt, stack the right hip open, and then start to circle that knee. So again, lubricating the joint, opening up a little bit more mobility. Good. Try and make those circles as complete range of motion as you can. Good. So again, not just flinging the foot around, but moving the leg in the hip socket. Good. And then lift and open, just pause. Good. Squeeze your left heel inward. That's your supporting heel. So draw that in and lift your left low belly. So almost like you're trying to balance both sides of your pelvis. Left side goes higher, which means right side's going to drop. Good. And then go ahead and release that foot back down to the floor. Nice. Take the left leg up and back behind you. This is all we're doing here. Bend the knee, kick your heel in, stack the hip, and then start to circle the knee. So same thing, just warming up. Again, as much full range of motion as you can. Good. Nice. Downward facing dog is also a triangular pose, if you haven't noticed. Good. Bring it all the way up and out. So find that point that you started at and hold. And then squeeze that right heel in towards the midline. So again, by squeezing that supporting heel in, you are changing the rotation on that leg. Keep your right low belly lifted and wide. Try and balance your weight on your hands here. So you have equal weight on both hands. Lift that right armpit higher. Good. You're like, that's not possible. Good. And then release that foot down to the floor. Nice job. Drop back down to hands and knees. Take your child's pose again for a breath or two. Might help to bend the elbows wide, make a pillow with your hands. The shoulders are a tight place. I know, all of this for triangle pose. But triangle pose is deceptive, which you know if you've ever tried to really hold it for any length of time, is that it takes a whole lot of strength to hold triangle pose without it becoming something where you're dumping into your lower back, or you're dumping into your ribs, you're dumping into your neck or your shoulders, or you're dumping into all of those places simultaneously. Right? That's the thing, is we used to say, or it was used to be said in traditions like Iyengar, to practice triangle as though you are between two planes of glass, right? That you are that completely aligned with yourself, right? That you're between two planes of glass. And we got away from that because it is an unrealistic expectation for 99.9% of bodies to be able to achieve that. But to get away from the concept that we are always trying to find this stacked and connected feeling to extend from, we don't want to get away from that. Right? We want to see where the body is able to make those lines really cohesive, right? Or those parts of the body all still originate from the center in a way that relationship wise is very balanced. And that's your triangle pose. Right? Walk yourself all the way back up. So you don't have to fit between two planes of glass, but the concept is one where if you're looking for that true alignment with yourself, is that you will find, right? That the body starts to stack itself in very, very harmonious ways. So walk your hands back up onto your hips, please. Next triangle simulation. Step your right foot out wide to the right, coming into gate pose. So your right foot is going to be out, extended in line with that left knee. Good. Toes facing straight ahead. So don't do the variation where you're up on the heel at this point. Toes facing straight ahead. Good. And then stretch your arms out nice and wide. Good. And then extend that right hand out towards your right foot and pause parallel to the floor. Good. So again, just like triangle pose, right? Notice what your pelvis does when you try to do this in this position. If it's trying to fold forward, if it's trying to fold backwards, notice what it does. Try and lift taller through the sides of your left hip. Try and pull up through the sides of your right waist. That's it. Good. Let that hand touch down to the leg, please. Take your left arm all the way over the ear without dumping. So very little to no actual weight onto that right hand. It's a support, but you're not resting on it. Good. I want you to stay really focused on connecting to those side waist muscles. Draw your low rib cage in, take your left armpit open more. I know you don't ever have to work these muscles again after this class if you don't want to. Good. Come all the way back up using those side waist muscles. Don't fling yourself. That's it. And then extend all the way out to the left. This one might be a little tougher. So extend out, pause, press through that baby toe edge of that right foot. Again, similar to what you would feel in triangle pose. Notice what's happening. Are your ribs popping forward? Is your butt popping out? Can you feel the connection of your ribs to the top of your hip? Good. Feel that your knee and your foot are squeezing towards each other. That's it. And then left hand touches down to the floor or a block. Right arm goes straight up to the sky. So again, simulate that triangle pose position. Good. And again, a block underneath the hand if you cannot comfortably reach the floor. Beautiful. Try and find that line where that arm that's in the air is there is no pull at the front of that arm bone. So bring it forward towards your chest until there is no pull. Good. Nice. And then feel as though you are squeezing your wrists towards each other. So you're pulling the arms into the center of the back. Awesome. And then again, from that side waist, come all the way back up to center. Flex. Yep. There it is. Good. And then release, please. Come back to hands and knees. Do a little cat and cow if you'd like. We get to do the whole thing on the other side. Yes. Yeah. But I often feel that when practicing for triangle or practicing triangle pose, that those long muscles of the back that connect your shoulders to your pelvis get stretched in a way that they don't in most other poses, or in a way that they don't in most other times of life. And so if you feel that combination of like sore and achy, but also like, Maybe something's going to let go here. That's great. If you don't feel that, keep practicing. You don't have to. Good. Come back to stillness, please. Walk your hands back up onto your hips and then take the left leg out wide to the left. Again, heel in line with your right knee. So this is what we're talking about in triangle pose, is that if you stack or you align the opposing parts of the body, is that you can extend further. If your extended leg here is too far back or too far forward, it's going to restrict that lateral movement of your rib cage with your pelvis. So you want it to be right in line, arms out wide. And for 1,000 other reasons, you want it to be in line. Good. Extend out to the left. So reach towards that extended foot first. Good. And then notice every single one of us, the tendency is we start to actually rotate our rib cage forward towards the floor in this position. So try to keep that right hip drawing back, keep your right rib cage drawing back, and connect your front ribs to the top of your pelvis. So don't let your butt stick out. That's it. One more breath, extend further. Rib cage extends. Yeah. And then let that hand touch down onto the leg again, just resting, right arm over the ear. Good. Keep the legs engaged so that extended foot and your knee are still drawing towards each other. The tops of the thighs are drawing up still into the apex of the pelvis. Good. And then from that side waist, come all the way back up to center. Good. Extend the other direction. So reaching out to the right, away from the extended leg. And again, watch what your pelvis wants to do. If you feel like your pelvis is trying to sit backwards in this position, really focus on lifting through your right side hip. That's your supporting hip. Pull up. Yep. Pull everything up away from the floor. And then draw that low rib cage in. Good. Rotate your left armpit open. Yep. Don't look so miserable. Good. And then let that hand touch down to the floor or a block. Left arm goes straight up to the sky. So try and find that wrist to wrist alignment or pretty close to it. Good. So you have that extended leg and then you're bringing the left hand forward enough so that there is no pull at the front of that left arm bone. Good. And again, that might feel to you like you're not stretching anything, but the stretch in this pose doesn't come from flinging your arm back. It comes from drawing your rib cage in and then rotating open, heart towards the sky. Don't let your right hip go with you when you rotate. Yeah, that's it. That's where the openness in the shoulders is coming from. Draw your throat back. Nice. And then again, flexing through those side waist muscles, come all the way back up. Really good. And then release back to hands and knees. Good job, you guys. Do a little movement, cat-cow, or circling the hips again to work out if you gripped in those outer hip muscles, which if you did, don't worry. We've all done it. Good. But it is one of those things that if we are tight in that area and we grip in that area to support us to get into triangle poses, and that's when we get that really unfortunate spasming. So how do we deal with that? Instead of focusing on just the upper hips, is we focus on the feet, focus on the inner thigh strength. And if you don't have that, well, that's why we practice. Good. Come back to stillness, please. Downward facing dog. Good. Step your right foot forward between the hands. Good. Take both hands inside the front foot. Walk to your left until you come to the center of your mat. Straighten the legs. Prasarita Padottanasana. Again, the long muscles of the legs work a lot in triangle pose. And if the groins are tight, pose becomes very challenging. If your outer hips are tight, pose becomes very challenging. And this is a pose that is great for both of those. Good. So notice here, if I tell you to squeeze your legs together, squeeze them towards each other and feel where the muscular energy seems like it's coming from. Does it seem like it's high up at the top of your legs? Does it feel like it's at your knees? Does it feel like it's at your lower part of your legs? Do you not feel it at all? Right? Try to notice where that is. And then let that feeling go. Stop the squeeze. And then press into your feet, lift and spread your toes. So really press down into your heels. Lift just your toes up off the floor. Good. And then imagine that you are literally drawing your inner edges of the legs all the way up. You're drawing a line all the way up into the center of your pelvis. So it's like your low belly is going to draw your legs up and in. So try that. From your lowest part of your belly, suck the legs all the way up and in. Good. And then just a gentle hug of your shins. And notice if the muscular energy feels placed differently when you imagine it like that. It might not. Good. And then just for a breath, hold opposite elbow so you have no hands touching the floor. You can let your toes go if you need. And again, notice where the muscular energy goes when you don't have hands on the floor. Good. Let your hands touch down. Beautiful. Hands to your hips, please. Come all the way up to stand. And just watch, Emily, I'm just noticing that your right hip looks like it was dropping a little lower there. So the right hip is a little bit tighter. So just notice that. Heel toe your feet a tiny bit closer, still a wide stance, and then turn your feet out 45 degrees. So you're coming into a high squat. Good. Bend your knees nice and wide. Again, if you have a similar situation to what I just said to Emily, is you want that side that seems like it's tighter, really focus on lifting that side hip bone just a little bit higher. Good. And then hands onto the thighs, please. Good. Even slide your right forearm onto your right thigh. Let's do it like that. Take your left arm over your ear. So right forearm onto right thigh, left arm over the ear. Drop your left thigh down. Yeah. So again, you're imagining that that space between your thigh bone and your hip bone is opening. Good. Come back to center, arms wide, and then left forearm onto left thigh, right arm over the ear. Drop your right thigh down and wide. Keep drawing the inner knees wide, and then lift your hip points straight up. Drop through your tail. Good. Notice if your ribs are pushing forward. The answer is yes. And then slowly come back to center. Straighten the legs, please. Nice job. Turn your toes forward again, back to that parallel stance, Prasarita Padottanasana. Release the hands down to the floor. Good. Right hand stays right where it is, underneath the shoulder. Take your left arm up to the sky. Good. Again, trying to find that feeling of wrist to wrist alignment where there is no pull through the left front arm bone, and pull your right low belly and hip wider to the right. Yep. Nice. Throat draws back. Good. Feeling the crown of the head pull forward as your tail pulls backwards. Right armpit, right hip pull away from each other. Nice. And then release and switch, please. Left hand down, right arm up. Left hip is going to pull up and wide here to balance. So pull that left low belly up and wide. And again, since you are now, again, the support of the hands is different than having both hands on the floor. It's focus again, inner edges of the legs, pulling all the way up into the apex. Good. And extending out through your left fingertips, the arm that's, the hand that's on the ground, right fingertips, arm that's in the air, but feeling the arm bones draw in towards the center of the heart. And again, no pull at the front of that left arm bone. I see you. Good. And then release that hand down to the floor. Beautiful. Walk your hands straight ahead, wide-legged downward facing dog. And then if you can, place that left hand just a little bit more center in front of you. Take your right hand, reach back for your left foot or ankle. So reach underneath you, cross stretch. And look underneath that left armpit. So you're actually twisting through your ribs and pull your right hip and low belly wide to the right. Good. More, Dana. Right hip wide, 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 wide. Keep going, keep going. Right hip wider. Good. Release and switch, please. Take that right hand forward in front of you. Reach the left hand underneath you. Cross stretch for that right ankle or shin or whatever part of the leg you can find. And it might not be that you can find the leg at all, but reach underneath you. Find some point on the floor. Keep your legs energetically drawing up in towards the center. Look underneath that right armpit. Twist your ribs. That's the point of this, right? Is to allow the ribs to twist as the pelvis stays steady. Good. And then release back to center, please. Walk your hands all the way back in. Nice job. Walk towards the top of your mat. Right toes turn forward. Spin your left heel up. Step your left foot forward a tiny bit. Take both legs to straight Parsvottanasana. Oh. Again, blocks underneath the hands here. Great idea. Turning that left hip forward, 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 forward as your right hip goes wider. Good. Right. These are big things, even though it seems like, oh, these are cues we give all the time, but the ability to be able to maneuver one side of the pelvis in opposition to the other, or to use one part of the pelvis to create harmony with the other, is a big one, especially when your legs are going to different directions. Here, your legs are facing straight ahead, both going in the same direction. In triangle pose, one is going one way and the other is going another way. So we're just building awareness again of how your legs meet your pelvis, how your pelvis meets your legs. And again, over time and repetition, as you start to develop that intuitively, even if it's hard for you to consciously make sense of what's going on. So one more breath, left hip spins forward, right hip pushes higher, wider. Good. And then bend your right knee, please. Switch the leg, step the left foot forward, step your right leg back. Nice, Alana, like that. Good. Again, make sure when you step back that your feet are not directly in line with each other. They should still have as much space right and left as the width of your hips. Good. And then again, we didn't do it on the first side, but we could. Right hip spins forward, forward, forward. Left hip pulls up and wide. So you're literally pulling your belly up off of your thigh, right? So what you're doing is you're actually twisting your torso at that point. As you're turning that right side waist forward, you're drawing your left side waist up and wide. Good. So Dana, don't turn all the way. Keep facing forward and just move lateral, right? So you're actually just changing the level of the pelvis. Good. And then for a second, you guys come up on your fingertips, lengthen your spine. So pull your tail towards the back of your mat while you extend the crown of your head forward, your armpits forward. Good. Again, both directions, press into your heels and feel the lift of your hips. So you should almost, if you're really reaching in all directions, you almost begin to feel weightless, right? So can you start to feel that where you are drawing up into the center of you, the arms draw up, the crown extends, the tail extends, your feet press down, but the inner thighs pull up, become weightless. Good, and then release all of that. Bend the left knee. Step forward, top of your mat. Good. Bend your knees, hold opposite elbows, hang. Rock from side to side or sway from side to side if you'd like. Good. And then release the hands, please. Separate your feet nice and wide. Either drop into squat, so turning the toes out, bending your knees and coming to squat. Or if squat is just really too much on the knees, just drop onto your butt or gracefully come onto your butt and come into Trikonasana. So either one of those. So again, if holding squat is not an option, come onto your seat and come into Trikonasana, feet together, knees open. So again, just a stretch for the groins, outer hips. Good. If your hands are at heart center and squat and you're pushing those elbows wide, that's great. Push through the top of your head and then give a little hug of your inner thighs. So we often say squeeze the knees together, but give a hug of your inner thighs. Feel what it's like to kind of clench around your outer hips and then try to unclench around your outer hips. You can isolate inner thighs. Yeah, it's a weird thing to try and unclench around your butt. Good. And then release the hands, please. Come all the way back up to forward fold. Nice job. Good. And then step your right leg way back behind you. Nice long lunge. Drop your back heel, baby toe parallels back of your mat. Come into warrior two, shoulders over the hips. Good. So a classical way of coming into triangle, right? What most of us are used to. Good. Bring your hands to your hips, hip points. Good. Notice which one is higher than the other. I'll give you a clue. It's the back one. The back one is lifted higher than the other. You got it, Kristen. So try to draw your left hip, your front hip forward and up into your hand. Yep. So it's the right hip is going to draw in towards the center of the body as your left hip draws up. So you're angling that pelvis instead of it being tilted sideways, goes level, right? Good. Now feel that squeeze of your feet towards each other. Start to straighten your front leg, pulling everything in and up. Stretch your arms up to the sky as you do that. So you pull up through the entirety of your whole spine. And if that left hip has sunk in again, pull it up and towards the top of your mat. And if you're not sure if it's sunk in again, it has. So pull it up. There you go. Good. This is what we're working in triangle, right? Is to find this lift through both edges of the side body. Good. Bend the left knee again. Stretch your arms out wide, warrior two. Good. Keep as lifted through that left hip point as you can. Keep drawing it up, off of your thigh. So make space in that thigh crease. Good. And if you can't feel that, literally stick your left thumb in that thigh crease. So you can feel, right? Try and pull your hip point up off of your thumb. Nice. Straighten the front leg again, please. Stretching both arms all the way up to the sky. Again, pulling inner thighs all the way up. Good. And pulling your low rib cage in. Drop through your tail. Beautiful. Now take the arms out and wide. Good. Don't look forward. Just keep, or you can look forward, but I recommend looking straight ahead. And just start to, just like you did in gate pose, extend. As you extend, just like in gate, you didn't push that right hip out wide to the right. You kept it drawing in. So extend out towards the top of your mat. Keep lifting your left hip point up off of your thigh. Keep lifting it up and extend. Draw your low rib cage in. Keep your feet drawing towards each other. Low belly sucks the thighs up and in. Good. Now let your left hand touch down to wherever it naturally does. If it does not touch the floor, don't reach for the floor. Bring it to whatever part of the leg it comes to. I don't care if it's all the way, 2 inches below your waist. And take that right arm up so that your wrist is in line with your left wrist. No pull at the front of that shoulder. Keep drawing your tail towards your back heel, drawing the low rib cage in, ribs, top of pelvis, fold in together. You want it to get longer, stretch through the crown of your head. Reach out through that back heel, which is the direction that matters. All of them. Which is the part of you that matters? All of them. Which is the being in front of you that matters? All of them. It's the heart. Bend your left knee, please. Release the hands to the floor. Downward facing dog. Triangle is we create harmony between differences when we pay attention to not just where everything is going, but where it's extending from. All directions. Good. Step the right foot forward between the hands. Drop your back heel, baby toe parallels back of your mat. Come into warrior two. We could, usually when I'm teaching on triangle, I get really kind of obsessive about the angle of your front knee. Notice I'm not doing that. Your knees are doing a pretty good job. But normally I would say that it's very important that you pay attention just for a moment so that you have this awareness. Look at where your front knee is pointing at your front foot. Second or third toe is what we say it should be pointing at. That's what you want. If you need to change the angle of your back hip to make that possible, do that. If that back hip needs to spin slightly forward and in, do that. Emily, I would turn your back foot slightly in. There you go. Yep. Good. Now look at that front leg, that front knee. As you straighten the thigh, notice if your knee changes its angle. A lot of times it wants to. So try to keep that knee in exactly the same line as it was when it was bent. Good. Now arms up. Right hip is going to be collapsing. So pull up through that right hip point. Bring it forward and up towards the top of your mat. And notice that your knee is not rolling inward. I can't see your knee, Dana, but I feel like maybe it wants to be. Good. Bend the knee again. Come back out to warrior two. And if this is hard, I agree. It is hard to find where your correct alignment is in triangle pose, but try to find it because it's this harmonizing of your joints that allows you to really go somewhere in this pose and not hurt yourself, right? If we keep pushing for an alignment that doesn't actually exist, two planes of glass, right? As we get caught, we get stuck, we get hurt. Good. Straighten the front thigh again, watching that angle of the knee. Don't let it roll in or out. Lift that right hip point up higher. If you need to send your left hip spinning forward more to do that, do it. This is where we get rid of that concept that your hip points have to be completely parallel to the side of your mat. Not until they're ready to be. Take your arms out wide again with both legs straight. So Dana, don't let that right hip drop. Pull it up. Up. There you go. And then extend forward without just yanking that left hip backward. So as you extend forward towards that right leg, Feel as though you're continuing to lift your left hip up. Your right hip point is lifting up off of your thigh. Again, if you can't feel that, stick a thumb in that thigh crease. Remind yourself to keep pulling up away from that space. And then your low ribs and top pelvic bones draw together. And that's where you're like, oh my God, my back has to hold me. My abdominals have to hold me. Good, let that right hand touch down where it naturally does. Don't reach for anything. And take the left arm up to the sky. Good, again, looking for wrist to wrist alignment where that hand, left hand, is coming slightly forward towards your chest until there's no pull. Then you can start to work your left armpit back in space. You can rotate your rib cage more without popping your ribs forward. And then the arm can come back again when it's in line with that lower wrist. Good. When both shoulders can open, then you can open more. When the whole trunk is able to rotate, you can go deeper. Until then, don't push backwards so that you can get your hand further to the floor. Extend. Crown of head, back heel, through both arms. Both legs draw up and in. From your low belly, you draw the legs up and in. Awesome. And you're breathing. Bend that right knee, release the hands to the floor. Step back, downward facing dog. Yeah, that was probably the most unsatisfying triangle pose you've ever done. And I think when we do triangles, that's the thing, is we can push to our maximum edges, but we don't actually grow from that. Our maximum range of motion without any awareness means we don't go anywhere. Drop down to your knees, please. Circle your hips or cat and cow, or do both of those together. So there's something to that precision of knowing that this is how I am using the energetic lines in my body, the energetic flows in my body, the energetic movement of my mind, right? That's the precision that we learn in triangle, is where are things originating from? And not only how do I extend, but how do I become aware of that center that is extending in all directions, and how do I come back to it, right? That full inclusive view involves both parts, both of those parts. Good, come back to stillness, please. Walk your hands back towards your hips. I know, tuck your toes if you'd like, taking a camel pose. So if you want to place a block between the upper thighs, you can. Good, give yourself something to hug. Nice. You can even place blocks back towards your ankles if you want to reach for your blocks instead of thinking about reaching for your feet. And then butt up off of your heels. So sit up nice and kneel up nice and tall. There you go. Again, tops of the thighs lift, or hip points lift up off the tops of your thighs. Tail drops. Hands can start at the lower back or hands at heart center. Hands behind the head, wherever you want your hands to start. And then begin to, as you get taller and taller and taller and taller, pulling up through those side waist muscles, lift your collarbones up towards the sky. Feel your armpits go wide, but without squeezing behind the heart. Just keep pulling up and widening. And then go ahead and start to lean back, hinge back from your thighs. Good. Don't push the ribs forward, but keep lifting the tops of the thighs up. Let your hands drop down to hang if you'd like. You can certainly keep them at your lower back. You can reach for your blocks or your heels if you choose, or keep the arms where they are. Don't lose the support of your navel, your abdominals towards your spine. Those thighs pull up, rib cage draws down. Long throat. Awesome. And then from your thighs, the lowest part of your belly, come all the way back up. Again, if we're really paying attention there, there should be no ache in the low back. Release the block. Drop down to sit, hips to heels. Take your forehead to the floor. Good. Reach back for the ankles or the feet. Roll up onto the crown of your head, lifting your hips up off of your heels. Round, 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 round. Again, those long muscles of the back worked really hard. Good. And then slowly release, hips back towards your heels. Come all the way back up. Find your way onto your backs. You know, the worst is over.
Yeah, I did.
Find your way onto your back. Good. Drawing the right knee in towards your chest, please. Squeeze it in. Extend your left leg down to the floor. Good. Come across your body for spinal twist. So bring that right knee across the body. Good. Let the knee drop all the way onto the floor. So let your twist come all the way over and stretch your right arm up alongside your ear. So instead of reaching back towards the floor, reach the arm all the way up. So you can really let that right knee drop all the way to the floor. So mark all the way over, all the way over, all the way. There you go. Keep going, Alana, unless you have a block underneath there. Okay, perfect. Good. Breathe again, side waist, armpit to hip, all the way through those tricky muscles of the lower spine, tricky muscles of the middle back. Good. And as you're breathing, can you feel your breath separating each rib? Like, nope, I cannot. Try to feel that. Kind of the point of this class is to realize that every pose that you do is preparing you for every other pose that you'll do ever. Every breath that you take is preparing you for the next breath that you'll take. And it's that our awareness of what we're doing and how we're doing it is what clarifies for us, right? The direction of our mind, of our energy clarifies for us what's going to be included in our learning and what isn't. The same poses can be considered preparation for lots of things. It's your mind that says, I'm extending myself in this direction, focusing in this direction. Good. Bring yourself all the way back to center, please. Bringing that right knee in towards the chest. Squeeze. Good. And then holding behind the thigh, extend the right heel up towards the ceiling. Good. Press the thigh into the hand, trying to draw that low belly in and up so that, again, you're making space in that thigh crease, and then drop that right side sacrum down to the floor. So it's like you're pulling from your heel straight down. Instead of pushing up, pull straight down. Good. And then keep that hand, right hand at the outside edge of that leg. Release the left arm out and wide. Let your right leg start to drop open to the right. Again, only to that point where your left hip stays rooted to the floor. Good. Keep that right heel spinning slightly upward. So again, you're rotating from the top of the hip, but you spin that heel slightly up. Good. Nice. And then using those left abdominal muscles, root down as you pull that right leg all the way back up to center. You didn't think that the left side should have to do that work, but it does. Good. And then bend the right knee back in towards your chest and squeeze. Good. And then release that leg down to the floor. Bring your left knee in. Right leg extended. Bring the knee across the body into your twist, letting the knee find the floor. So come all the way over so that your knee and your shin are resting on the floor. You could also place a block underneath the knee if coming all the way over doesn't work for the back. Good. And then the left arm comes up over the ear. So again, you're breathing side rib, side waist. And absolutely, if your spine, your structure is prepared for that left shoulder to just soften all the way down to the floor, you can let it go there, but don't reach for it. Good. Let it be more about that extension through the side waist, outer hip, outer armpit. Good. If your lower back is arching here, I do recommend that you draw the low part of your belly back and in, so you're still trying to almost lengthen your tail here. And keep breathing, feeling like the breath is going to separate each rib. You might have to come back to these positions many, many times, not only to strengthen, but also to just continue to create more mobility in a part of the body that we don't use often enough. We don't use it in very interesting ways. The areas that have become very tight in you as they need attention, soften, 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 soften. And slowly start to bring yourself back to center, please. Hugging the left knee back up in towards the chest. And hold behind the thigh, extend the heel all the way up towards the ceiling, pressing the thigh back into the hands. And again, rooting down from the heel all the way down into the hip, pull down. And then just draw the low belly back and away from the top of that thigh. So again, the drawing in of the low belly helps support the lower back. If your rib cage is pulling up away from the floors, you want to try and find that low edge of your shoulder blades drawing down towards the floor. Good. Keep that left hand at the left thigh. Right arm can go out wide if you'd like. Let the left leg start to drop open. Again, only to the point where your right hip can stay anchored to the floor. Right thigh can stay anchored to the floor. You're spinning your left heel slightly up. So again, the top of your thigh rotates open, but the heel is going to turn in and up. Nice, Harriet. Good. Anchor that right thigh, Kristen. Yeah, so even here, you guys, you have to have that feeling of drawing the thighs up and in. Good, Sue. And then keep that right low belly and waist pressing down. Bring the left leg all the way up again from that inner thigh. Beautiful. Good job. And then hug the knee back in towards your chest, please. Good. Bring the right knee in as well. Hug. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Good. Take the right thigh on top of the left, stacking the knees. Separate your feet. Gomukhasana legs, drawing the knees in. Does seem to be like a signature of this class is we always do Prasarita Padottanasana. We always do Gomukhasana legs. They're just good for so many things. Good. Release and switch, please. Take the other leg on top. Separating the feet, drawing the knees in towards the belly. And as the knees fold in, you allow the lowest part of your back to extend. There's that word again, to lengthen. Find your tail drawing down towards the floor. Really, when we're working with those areas of the body that tend to be tight, it might really feel like that process of unfolding. That's a lovely thing when you can feel that. You're like, another half an inch of something, let go. And that's what triangle pose is if you hold yourself to that harmonious alignment structurally, is you might come up against a lot of tightness. But half an inch by half an inch by half an inch, it starts to let go. Slowly unwind, hug the knees in towards the chest, please. Bring your forehead up to meet your knees, squeeze. And then slowly release, uncurling the spine, stretching the legs out in front of you, arms alongside you, let yourself rest. Again, as always, if the lower back needs support, having a blanket or a pillow or something underneath the knees is lovely. And feel your breath again as though you are extending it in all directions. And you can contemplate which one is the important one. All of them. Which breath is the important breath? This one. Always this one. Very gently bring the awareness back to your breath. Letting the body begin to stretch and move in whatever ways serve it well. And as you're ready, draw the knees in towards your chest and roll to your right side. Taking a moment before you begin to push the floor away, come back to an upright seated position. Hands coming to rest at the heart center, palm to palm. So we have this image at the heart of those two interlocking triangles, energy moving up and energy drawing down. And it's meant to be that symbolic connection of the energy that is rising up to that liberated spiritual state and the energy of the divine, the infinite, that draws down into embodiment, that it's one and the same. But if you look at those interlocking triangles, is that they don't just move up and down, is that they expand in all directions. So which one is the important one? All of them. And those lines, right? We see the points as being where two lines come together, but the lines themselves extend into infinity. You extend into infinity. So that concept that there is a limit to what you can feel, to what you can see, to what you can do, not so much, right? Is that it's where are you willing to go? What are you willing to follow? How deep, how far? How much are you willing to include all directions? The more you do, the more complete this experience becomes. And that's our practice, is can I look in all the directions that I never look? Can I start to care in directions that I've never cared before? Can I start to feel in ways that I've never let myself feel? And then I become whole. I understand what wholeness is by doing that. So you practice triangle pose. You never end. You have no beginning and no end. Lesson of the heart chakra. Close the sound of Om. Deep breath in. Sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week until I see you again. Have fun next time you do triangle. Try to remember any of these things and don't just, say, forget it. Veronica's not looking. I'll do it how I want. It's all right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
And say bye to Alana for me.
I
Thank you.
will. She's 4 drops away.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye, bye, bye.